You want to really test yourself, come to Celtman. It's an incredible race with an amazing kind of community background in, one of the most spectacular places on the planet. Where do you start? There's loads of reasons to come to Celtman.
Hello and welcome to XTRI World Tour Meet the Organisers. I'm your host Tanya Branzanik, and in this episode we talk to Paul McGreal, the race director of the Celtman Xtreme Scottish Triathlon. Welcome to XTRI World Tour podcast, Paul. It's really nice to meet you. So all the XTRI races are run by independent organisers in different countries. So can you please give us a short introduction of yourself and your background as an organiser?
Sure, I'm Paul McGreal. I live in Scotland, just about an hour south of Edinburgh, and we organise Celtman, which happens further north in Scotland. My background, I'm an adventure racer, a triathlete. Don't race as much as I used to or would like to, but my background was an athlete. I've been organising races for maybe 10 years now, something like that, and it's what I do full time. This crazy hobby has become the way I pay my bills now, and I love it. Every day is fun, and I deal with amazing, positive people in incredible places. It's not actually work at all. It's great.
So I know the Celtman was the first XTRI race to join Norseman in 2012. Can you please tell us why you choose to organize a race on the scale of Norseman in Scotland?
Yeah, it was the genesis of it was really a conversation in a shop, a specialist triathlon shop in Edinburgh that was run by Stuart McKinnis. I was a customer. He knew I was an event organizer. He'd been to Norseman on a number of occasions. He'd made films there. Had fallen in love with the race, and we were talking one day in the shop, and Stuart said, wouldn't it be great if we could do that in Scotland? And my immediate response was, yeah, absolutely. Scotland would be an incredible place to do an XTRI, absolutely incredible. And the place we have to do it is Torridon in the northwest of Scotland. The reason for that, Scotland is an amazing, beautiful, spectacular, mountainous country, and Torridon is, I think, the most amazing, spectacular, beautiful, mountainous corner of the country. So it was the obvious location for Celtman to be created in, and the rest of it then fell into place fairly quickly. We approached Norseman, and we were determined to be respectful to the incredible thing they had created. So we wanted them to be involved and engaged, and brilliantly, Doug helped us create Celtman. We learned from the master, and it was we were determined to do it in the right way.
So those are the reasons why you have chosen Torridon and Shieldaig for this race, because it's for the location, actually, wasn't it?
There are actually other reasons. I mean, location is clearly kind of top of the pile. It is beautiful, and mountains really do meet the sea there in a way that doesn't really happen anywhere else in Scotland. And it's wild, and it's remote, and it's quiet. But the other major reason for choosing that location is the communities. Something that's become really, really important. I mean, there aren't many people that live there. They're clustered in small villages. But they really make the race come alive. The communities there have adopted the race. They kind of see it as theirs, which is fantastic. We love that. And so what happens when competitors and support teams turn up in this remote part of Scotland is that the community kind of wraps themselves around the race, and it's a really great kind of, it's just nice, it's positive and it's warm, and the race is welcomed by the community, and that was really important for us. We deliberately chose communities where we thought that might happen.
So this is the biggest event on that location.
Oh, by a huge margin, yeah.
Yeah.
There are, I mean, so we bring, Celtman brings maybe something probably around 1,000 people into the area for race week.
Wow.
By the time you've added up, athletes and supporters and friends and family, the total population of the two villages of Torridon and
Will be.
Shield is less than that. Is less than that. So we
Yeah.
double the population. So it
Yeah.
has a huge impact locally.
For 1 week, actually,
Yeah,
more or
and
less. Yeah.
yeah. So it kind of makes it makes significant impacts
Yeah.
in good ways and some less good ways. We bring 1,000 people to a quiet area. It could have gone one of two ways. Fortunately, the community engaged and embraced and loved the event. It could have so easily been different, but we worked really hard to try and make sure that didn't happen. To try and make sure that they loved the event.
Yeah. So, what are the special features of Celtman that perhaps make it different from the other races?
I think it probably is that community stuff. I mean, all the races in the XTRI series happen in incredible places. They're all wild and mountainous and just places that really are, destinations. You really want to go to these places. That applies to all of the XTRI races. Celtman, definitely that applies to. Our mountains, our run, which goes across the top of two mountains. We call mountains over a certain height in Scotland. We call them Munros, and we go over two of the Munros on the hill known as Ben A. So that our run is properly kind of tough. Actually, people kind of come expecting paths, because quite often in the Alps or in other mountainous regions there are paths. We don't have paths. We've got slightly different coloured stones, and that's basically how our run works. So I think the run course is pretty unique, even amongst XTRI runs. I think it's pretty unique. But also, as I said a second ago, it's the community. I think it's the way that this race is immersed in its community gives it a really special feel.
So let's talk about the swimming course, which because we hear about the smacks of jellyfish and the swarms of midges. But what, in your opinion, makes the Celtman extreme?
It's partially those things. You certainly engage with the wildlife. Yeah, midges and jellyfish. We've become famous for those things. The swim course is really interesting. It's a linear course. It's A to B. It's a journey like many of the XTRI race swim courses are. But at Celtman, you can't see the exit. When you get in the water at the start, you can't see it. You swim out into the loch, and there's a point in time where you're between a couple of islands where if you take a moment to kind of look around and pause, you are really in the middle. You're properly exposed. The weather can get interesting around there. We have a big safety crew, but even so, it feels remote and it feels exposed. All the way through the swim course, you can see the mountain that you're running up later on. And the water's cold. I mean, it really is cold. And then you have the jellyfish. We also try and make do a bit of theatre at the start. So fire, all those kind of Celtic themes of fire and Celtic symbols and all that kind of stuff. We want people to know they're in Scotland. So the start is dominated by these huge fire sculptures. If you've seen the photograph we take on race day morning, you'll recognise that, this massive
really nice
burning. Yeah, we try and just do a bit of theatre. I mean, theatre is my background as well. Actually, before event organising, I worked in theatre, so that's stuff that I'm familiar with. But we try and make a show of it.
So talking about the mountains, many of the tour races finish on the top of a mountain, but Celtman asked the athletes to also descend from Benney as part of the race. What were the reasons for choosing this tough option?
Mostly practical, to be honest. A lot of the XTRI races have some kind of facilities on the top of the mountain. So the race can finish there and can safely finish there. So we look at, Norseman, has the railway station at the top there. The new race on the Isle of Man, similarly, Swissman, Kleine Scheidegg, they have their rail stations, so you can finish a race there and then get people away from that location safely. Scotland isn't like that. We don't have those kinds of facilities on tops of mountains. We're much, much wilder and more remote than those places. And so it was a practicality, really. We had to get people off the mountain. And so the mountain top comes in the middle of the course, and then you descend. But the descent itself is special. It really is. The key feature on it is the descent of a scree gully. Scree is small stones. And this gully descends at it's really steep. It's maybe 45, maybe even more degrees into this incredible mountain landscape of a lochen, a corrie, we call them in Scotland, a corrie surrounded by these massive, massive cliffs, the Triple Buttress, one of the most iconic mountain landscapes in Scotland. And you descend into the heart of that. People underestimate the descent on Celtman. They kind of assume, we know this, they kind of assume that once they've done the climbing, once they're on top of the mountain and they're starting to descend, that, that really they're coasting to the finish line. That's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
People really need to keep their wits about them. And it's a different set of skills. Running downhill is a different set of skills. So it's a course that really tests people. It really does.
In all ways.
In all
these ways, yeah. So, but in some years you have had to close the mountain section. This shows the possibility of difficult weather conditions. What kind of weather can athletes expect on the race day?
The athletes can expect all the weather, all the possibilities.
Everything.
We're quite a long way north, and we're quite well exposed to the Atlantic, particularly on the west side of Scotland, which is where this race happens. Weather, it's a famous kind of truism about Scotland that the weather changes every 15 minutes, and that's pretty much right. It is literally possible in summer, in June, when Celtman happens, it is literally possible that it could be 25, 30 degrees and incredible sunshine. It could be snowing. It is a possibility. It's not happened yet. But what does happen is very mixed weather. And up on the mountains, when the weather rolls in, it rolls in really quickly, and it rolls in a fairly significant way. So the cloud comes down, and you can't see where you're going. It becomes a really atmospheric, quite scary place, actually, in some ways. Can be wet. It can be very windy.
Windy, yeah.
So these are the reasons that we have that we take safety really seriously up on the mountain. So the local mountain rescue team, Torridon Mountain Rescue Team, turn out in big numbers, and they're stationed up on the hill. So we're really well covered. We're good to respond. We've never had to respond. I have to say, athletes who come to Celtman are great. They're amazing. They equip themselves well, and they have the skills. So it doesn't happen, or it's not happened yet. But we're in a good position in terms of our safety cover, because we take that really seriously.
But if you have to close the mountain, what is the low course like?
Yeah, this is something. It's a great question, because this is something that people, I think, miscalculate this. The low course, we deliberately don't call the low course the easy course. That's a deliberate decision not to call it that. But we hear people calling it that. It's really not. The valley that the low course passes through still climbs, 300, 400, 500 meters, but is a bit more protected. So it's doable in all weathers. And we've had some really wet years when we've just run everybody through the low course. But people should definitely not underestimate the low course. The low course is really hard. We have had people say that it's harder than the high course. Yeah, because it's it's just kind of unrelenting. It's certainly not an easy option. We don't use the word easy. We use the word low. That option was built into the planning for the event from the start. We know Scotland well. We all live here. We know what it's like. We know the weather can change quickly. We know that safety can become an issue. And so, from day one, that low course option was built in to make sure that we could always put in front of athletes a really good course. No matter what the weather conditions were, we can always run a great course.
So, talking about the athletes, who is your target audience for Celtman, and throughout experience, what type of athletes suit this race, in your opinion?
Yeah, we didn't. It's a funny one there. I don't know that we ever really kind of knew that. I don't think we ever really were kind of ruthless marketeers. We kind of opened this crazy race and were interested to see who would come along. The people that did come along were probably broadly the same as for most XTRI races. It's a mixture of triathletes, people who've done other long distance races perhaps and are kind of looking for something different. We've also had adventure racers, and we've had kind of, top level cyclists and hill runners. For example, we've got a woman in the race again this year, Angela Mudge, who's been a world hill running or world mountain running champion on a number of occasions. She's an amazing athlete. So people have come from a variety of backgrounds. People who've just done big long days out in the hills. What we've found is that Scotland has been really attractive to people from around the world. I guess people know something of Scotland. There is a profile. People kind of know about, I don't know, Loch Ness, and maybe they know about Edinburgh, and they know about the Highlands. So people around the world know about Scotland and seem to want to come there. And I understand that. I live here. It's the best place in the world. Why wouldn't you want to come here? So what we found is that actually kind of, something like 60 or 70% of our athletes are from out with the UK. They're from around the world. And literally every year we have maybe 40 countries that are represented. We've decided this year to take a bit of advantage of that. And so we've set up a scheme where we're linking international athletes with the local primary school in Shieldaig. So the kids are going to do projects on countries from around the world, language, food, culture, all that kind of stuff. And we're going to link them using the race. We're going to link them with people from those places that they've been studying. And they'll get to ask the athletes questions about their home country. The athletes will go into the school during race week and meet the kids. So hopefully this works in both ways. That the kids get to learn something about the world via the race, but also athletes are going to get this incredible opportunity, we think, of making connections with people who live in the race, live where the race is, making those local connections. And we think people are going to love that. Well,
that's a great project. Maybe we can adopt it for the whole XTRI World Tour.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic thing if that were possible. Because obviously, all of the XTRI races have international audiences and they have domestic audiences. It'd be a great thing if that could be replicated elsewhere.
So we all know that Celtman is sold out for 2019, but why should athletes choose Celtman for 2020?
Why? Because it's a brilliant race in an amazing part of the world. It really is. You want to test. You want to really test yourself? Come to Celtman. It's an incredible race with an amazing kind of community background in, one of the most spectacular places on the planet. Where do you start? There's loads of reasons to come to Celtman.
Okay. Thank you, Paul, and see you in June at Celtman.
Thank you very much. See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.